Good afternoon. It's Tuesday afternoon, April the 5th, and I am going to be taking us through the final couple of chapters of the book of Esther, and then we're going to do a bit of reflection afterwards. So this will be part one of two parts for today, and this will conclude our Lenten devotional on the book of Esther. So chapter 9 basically just recaps what we learned through chapter 8. That the Jews received the letter, the proclamation from Mordecai, written in the king's name with the king's seal, that the Jews are allowed to defend themselves by any means, to thwart any attempt on the part of Haman's associates throughout the Persian Empire to destroy and annihilate the Jews. And so indeed, on the 13th day of the 12th month, when the time had been set for the genocide of the Jewish people in the Persian Empire, the Jews mount an overwhelming defense and put down all of their enemies. Chapter 9 tells us that 500 people were killed in the city of Susa, and then many thousands of enemies throughout the rest of the Persian Empire. And the Jews prevail and survive. And the violence gets carried over into the following day as the Jews round up the 10 sons of Haman, and each of them are hanged on the gallows that was built for Mordecai to be hanged on. But the story tells us the Jews touched none of the bounty. None of the treasures of those who were killed in this defensive effort on their part. So I guess that's supposed to give us a sense that there is some restraint to what the Jews are doing, whereas many would go in and kill their enemies and take all of their treasure. It's mentioned more than once in chapter 9 of Esther that they did not touch the bounty. So the story is concluded in chapter 10, which only lasts a few verses, by talking about the height that Mordecai ascends to. He essentially becomes the second in command in the Persian Empire under King Ahasuerus, kind of in the same way, I guess, as Joseph does. He becomes second in command under Pharaoh at the end of the book of Genesis. The other thing that is stressed in the final couple of chapters of Esther is the establishment of the celebration of Purim. Both the Queen Esther, and Mordecai issue letters throughout the 127 provinces of the Persian Empire, instructing that on the 14th day they would celebrate this festival to proclaim the salvation of the Jews, to remember it, and that it should be done in each generation forevermore. Haman cast a pur, or a lot, to determine the day of the destruction of the Jews, and so this celebration becomes known as Purim, and that is where the story ends. So we'll take a few moments to reflect on the fact that once again that the book of Esther does not mention the name of God. And so what does this mean? Does this mean it is a purely secular book, that God plays no part at all in the story? Or is God there behind the scenes and is just not mentioned in the narrative? There is mention made in the book of prayer and fasting, and Mordecai seems to express a belief in providence. In chapter 4, once again, we have this very famous verse from Esther: "Perhaps you have come to this royal dignity for just such a time as this." That's what Mordecai says to Esther, proclaiming his belief that she may have come into that position for this very time when the livelihood, the life and the future of her people were at stake. So what does it mean that God is not named anywhere in the story, that God doesn't speak anywhere in the story? I think that there is an important connection with our own experience in our lives and in the world around us. You know, we often, I think, find ourselves wondering where God is when there's some kind of a catastrophe in the world, when women and children are getting bombed out of existence in places like Gaza and other places in the world, where there is so much injustice run amok everywhere we look in the news. Where is God? Why doesn't God intervene somehow and change this? And there are many possible explanations for that, but it is our experience quite often that God simply isn't present or is not present in any obvious way in our lives or in the world around us. So we will pick up with that in part 2 of this video.